Let me go ahead and unmute myself so that you can hear me. I think that might be particularly useful. Okay, so I realized that I could change some of the settings that were causing issues for some of the people viewing the stream. I just checked to make sure that my voice isn't an octave lower today, which is good. And I think that's everything. So hello. I am glad to be existing with you. Very glad for this opportunity. Today is going to be different from yesterday, as is the case every day. But this time I'm going to talk about random stuff that comes into my head, stuff that I'm working on. I figure it might actually be good to show you what I'm doing on Patreon. I've got some of my writing stuff, and, well, just, I guess, general directions that my life may or may not be taking. That's the thing about creating and existing in this space, beyond the little bubble that is my, well, inner and external reality. Existing in a stage offering little windows into my life to the people who coexist. People such as yourselves. Whether you're here right now or you're here later, whatever the case may be. I don't know if you've heard this recently, but thank you for existing. I'm very glad that you do, and I'm very glad to be here with you. But today, you know what? I guess, I have a few people who said they were going to be joining in a little bit. But in the meantime, I might as well say something of use. I don't know. That's the thing, isn't it? Whenever you exist in an internet space, whenever you have the audacity to suggest that you deserve to be seen, there's this pressure to say something valuable. I don't know how strong that pressure is. Of course, even recognizing that it exists is making an assumption, isn't it? An assumption of external realities, of the world behind your eyes, behind your own thoughts. I don't know if it's rude to assume that looking upon this video and looking upon me, should you do so, of course you wouldn't know to think these thoughts or to think about the reflection that they offer without watching. Is it bold to assume you expect me to say something valuable? Or are you like my friend who simply just wants to hear me meander, to listen to my voice and to wonder what I'm going to invent next? Because I'll tell you, I would like to know as well. I have no idea. I have no idea what's going to happen. But I do know that trying is worthwhile. Again, if I'm looking over here, I'm looking at my stream information because I figure I might as well show off my Patreon as it is today. That's one thing that I really like about doing these streams and doing these videos and having these conversations, is that I have windows into different points in time, into different realities, because we have this continuation of our perspective, things defined as continuity or an expression thereof. And memory is a difficult thing. Unreliable. Memory is an unreliable narrator. I have forgotten a lot of things in my life, to be fair. And I feel like that's something that we can relate to. Speaking of things to relate to, I guess at a certain point when my friends are ready to join, when they're available, when they are free, I'll see, hello, welcome, speaking of one of them. Let me check. Yes, you can actually see it on the video this time. Hello and welcome. I was just talking words. It's fine. So was I. I was a few minutes late as well because my nephew mentioned having some lag in the stream yesterday. So I did some research and I figured out how to reduce the quality of the stream, but also to reduce some other settings so that it's more compatible with lower internet speeds. I might have to do even more. I'm going to have to see if he can join another one and then ask him how it's looking for him, because I know some other people did not have problems yesterday. So still learning how all of this works, which is true not only about streaming and making videos, but also about life in general. That reminds me, one of my friends I invited to yesterday's stream said that they were able to stop by for a little bit, but then had other things to attend to. And I responded, I forget what I said, but they said afterward, I strive to achieve your level of inner peace. And my response was, me too. It's a constant process of adapting and learning and reflecting and having some goal in mind, I guess. I don't know. Just doing your best. Speaking of which, congratulations on surviving this long. I hope you have many more. What's the way to put it? Because I can't say many more good experiences, because that is not fully encompassing, is it? I do hope. Time marches, so shall I. That's a great way to put it. I do hope you have many good experiences ahead of you. I also hope that you're able to have patience with yourself in times when the story of your life is not so pleasant. Because even then, I saw something earlier today on the internet that said it's more... No, what's the way to put it? Value can be found in any experience, provided that you see failure not as a destination or a quality of your character, but as an opportunity to learn, to build upon what you already know, and to remake your personal reality, and also the world around you, with the intention that you bring to every moment. Just what I try to do. And apparently it's successful, because I still exist. Which is not something I've always taken for granted. Speaking of which, my friend, Colin, if you have any questions in particular about D&D or my Patreon or the writing stuff that I do, let me know. Because that's what I want to use Fridays for. The title of the stream is An Introduction to an Idea, which unfortunately involves alliteration. So given that yesterday's stream was called Audio Alchemy, Looking at the Library, I have thus far established the convention of alliteration. So I'm going to try to make that work for as long as I can. That said, why don't we go ahead and take a look at my Patreon. Everything that I have on there, I believe I edited it so that everything can be accessed with a free account. Because as much as I would love to explain to you why and how I need your help to survive, that typically does not go over very well. In conversations. People don't talk about money very often, and I think it's a very sensitive topic because we have this drive toward, or this pull toward, through obligation, a behaviors and perspectives that perpetuate our systems designed to help us survive. Unfortunately, some people are kind of rude and weird, so survival is not guaranteed, even in a place where we could make that happen. All that to say, I have a Patreon. I would love it if you signed up, even for free, because that's where I put all of my cool ideas, except for my D&D ideas. I have one table, and I'm considering retiring from professional GMing. I was going to set up new games to run with random people on the internet, but honestly, that's a lot of work, and the connections that you get through that are so varied. They're so varied, you never know how it's going to play out. What is happening with those games? So I have a Tuesday game now, which is no, literally, it's fine. Anything is part of the conversation. On Thursdays, I talk about music. On Fridays, I talk about my life and your lives and our lives. So literally anything is fine to talk about. If you have any random question, feel free to present it. On Saturdays, I have a day off, which is an ironic title because I intend to stream on that day too. But that's going to be me playing video games. If I can get that set up, which is what I'm doing tomorrow before I stream. So yeah, I have a Tuesday game right now, which most players are paying for, the convention of professional GMing. But not everybody in the group can afford to pay for it, so not everybody does. I only have that one now. It's been, it's kind of the result of a lot of other games evolving and losing players over time due to the chaos of life. So I've like collected all of the people who can keep going into one game, and I've closed it off. So there's no availability with that game. So I actually don't have any tables right now that anybody could join. I am thinking about opening up my Discord server to pretty much anyone who wants to stop by, and coordinating my information and my conversations through that. And then at some point, if we get enough interest, starting up a new table or running little one-shots, smaller experiences. Just adapting as things come. That's how I've survived for so long. So it's unfortunately, at this period of my life, this moment, this area, this whole streaming starting. I'm not streaming so that people start paying me for things. I'm streaming because I feel like, I like hanging out with people generally, and I realized after posting a couple of videos. Oh, awesome. Colin made a Patreon as well. I'm so excited to check that out. Maybe I can do that today. Yes, so I'm not doing it to ask you for money. I'm doing it because after uploading videos to YouTube, I discovered that I could have a 20-minute long YouTube video and people can hang out with me for 2.5 hours. So being online, I can just exist with people and maybe, hopefully, along the way, say something, offer words, offer ideas, perspectives that help inspire a little bit of calming down. As that's a really hard thing to do, generally. But it's something that I think people benefit from when they're able to engage with that kind of process and able to make some sort of progress with it. So the combination of the voice that I've inherited with the ideas that I've developed through a lifetime of how to describe that? A diverse range of external, internal, emotional, intellectual, spiritual experiences that have challenged my sense of self. Probably the best way to put that. Yeah, I mean, go ahead and check that out. That would be awesome. I absolutely love that, Colin. I'm going to take a look at what I have here. I actually have my Twitch chat over here. So I'm going to move it for just a second so I can take a look at my other screen. Colin joined. Thank you. That's so kind. I am so excited to show you what I've created here, which I'm going to do a bit of right now, actually, because I have discovered that getting my friends, inspiring them to spend a moment to sign up for free is actually very difficult. And I think I know why. It is so hard to remember to do anything. We have so much pressure on our faculties to pay attention, to do things, to go from one moment to the next and try to pick up all of these little pieces, and doing something that's entirely optional and also requires time. That's I think progressively getting to be more and more to ask of somebody. It's kind of like inflation, really. Rent goes up. It's just yet another thing to pay attention to. So I deeply appreciate the kindness that is taking the time to look. But you don't have to worry about looking through it right now. You can if you want to. I'm going to show you how I have it set up. So I'm going to move this over here so it's right here so I can look at it some more. So I'm not missing your messages. And then I'm going to go over to OBS, make sure everything is right, and then hit this button. The music will stop. We'll be able to... Awesome. Colin bookmarked it for later. Oh, yeah, that's actually a really good point. Signing up doesn't have a deadline. I guess the deadline is like... you miss out on the journey of creation. So the way I'm using Patreon is to coordinate an evolving narrative which results in the development of the book that I'm writing. So being part of the conversation, like the stream, which feeds into the ideas, is basically, you can think of it as signing up for the Patreon is joining the journey of evolution, seeing where my mind is investigating, the thoughts that I'm exploring, and all of the very, very relevant things that are happening in my life. And I use that to, I guess, to expand and to collaborate. So the fact that everything is free right now and it's gonna be there so long as the servers don't collapse and society doesn't explode. It's gonna be there. So yeah, no deadline. Definitely doesn't put pressure on people to check it out immediately, which I prefer because I don't want to stress people out. I don't want, hey, check out this cool thing that I'm making, to be, to put any sort of pressure or demands in the context of that. Because I'll tell you a story real quick, if you don't mind. At one point, I was technically a lower manager in a corporation. It's the best way to put that. I was responsible for coordinating connections between some of the other staff and the general public. One of these connections took the form of a promotion in collaboration with another organization. I'm being very vague here. The promotion didn't need to have a deadline. A very diplomatic way of putting it. Yes, that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm being very intentional with the way I'm wording this. The promotion did not need to have a timeline. It did not need to have a deadline. It could have just gone without one. However, the middle management of this corporation that I worked with disagreed with that sentiment and decided to impose a timeline, a deadline. It was a promotion to receive certain services for free, which I thought was incredible, given the nature of the services. But I had to tell this person I was connecting with from this other organization that they could have this service for free, but they had to make use of it within like a month or something, which is not enough time to coordinate the acquisition of said services. So they responded, resisting that idea. And I asked the middle manager at the time what I could do about that, if we could extend the deadline. And the response I got was entirely arbitrary. So that's one of the many experiences I referenced earlier that inspires me to approach the things that I do in the way that I do. I don't feel like it's necessary to put pressure on your audience to do a certain thing in a certain way, because the audience is fully capable of making their own decisions. They have agency. And I feel people respond more positively when you respect and recognize that agency. I think that the resources that are made available to us are done so, not only because we need them, and I believe that the universe is inherently benevolent, but also because of the value that we offer as creators, as commercial entities, all of these other things. I could tell you another story if you want to hear it. Of course, let me know if you'd rather just look at the Patreon stuff. But there was, I'm gonna dilute it. So there was another time I was working not as a manager, but as another employee at a certain organization. Well, thank you. I'm glad you like my stories. The ones I'm telling now are very intentionally vague, but hopefully the ideas are still communicated. I was working a certain position with a certain organization that was corporate in its design. And I saw information that I'm not going to repeat directly, but I saw information that was not private. It was not proprietary. It was probably something taken off the internet, honestly. But it was a perspective to engage with, to embody, to utilize, that was related to a conversation about sales, about selling things. Yes. Yeah, I'm sure you do know these stories without their fakeness. Yes, it was about sales, and this perspective that was illustrated was very much inconsiderate. The forward, like the leading thought, the idea that drove the perspective was that when you are engaged in a conversation with somebody where your intention is to sell them something, if they say no, well, they don't actually mean it. They don't actually not want it. Your purpose as the person selling something is to say why, to wait for them to respond, and then to counter their response with information as to why that is not a valid reason. So I saw in this particular organization information meant for their sales staff, which basically said, if someone says no, disregard that, which I'm sure you probably know is not a good way to engage with people or to have relationships with anyone ever, basically. So, yeah, if you're in sales and someone says no, just be like, hey, that's a fair point. Start with that, and then you could build off of that. Just recognize and accept when somebody says no. That's what they mean to say. So yes, conversation of agency. When it comes to establishing and developing my own personal business, I don't work off of the platform of expectation or, well, yeah, I don't want to put pressure on you, basically. I know that the people in my life, the people that I know, the people close to me, and even I imagine some of the people who drift by, I know that you do what you can. If you find value in existing around me and listening to my stories and just engaging in any way, you're doing it because you can, because you want to. And I don't ever want to inspire a feeling that you have to do something, because you really don't. You don't even have to be here right now. I am immensely grateful that you all are. Don't get me wrong on that. But I don't want to set up a situation where you feel compelled to do a certain thing. That said, I would appreciate, and I'm sure you would too, if you signed up for my Patreon. But I'm going to show you what's on here for free on the internet in a public space. I mean, it's free anyway. You just have to sign up. That's pretty much it. I'm going to show you some of this stuff. So I have collections are the main way I organize this. So I'm going to go over here and show you what it looks like as a paid member. So this is what you get access to. I have it set as a paid member, but all of this stuff is for all members. You don't have to pay to look at it. Yes, people engage with others by choice. You know, that's a good point too, because when you're gifted a self-critical perspective, it's a common tendency to question the motivations of the people around you. You know, if somebody engages with you, here are some examples of thoughts. They're only doing that because they have to. They don't really mean what they say. Secretly, they're laughing about me behind my back. I know that they probably think I'm a burden. All of these thoughts. You don't have to pay attention to them. If somebody didn't want to talk to you, it's their responsibility to not. That's my opinion. Speaking of not talking, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep talking, because if I didn't, then, well, actually, no, you might enjoy just looking at me. I don't know. People have different opinions. But that said, collections are how I have all of this organized. So if we go over here, I've got the Multiverse of Aether, which is my D&D campaign. It only has one post right now. Okay. That is totally fine. Thank you for commenting. And thank you for that comment as well. I am making the assumption that you are talking to me and not responding to the other chatter. So let me know if I am wrong. But in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy the compliment. So the Multiverse of Aether is my D&D campaign, the one that I'm running on Tuesdays. Okay, Colin, but on my phone. Perfect. That's what I figured would be the case. but thank you for clarifying. On my Patreon right now, I have a recording of myself reading a play that I wrote. So it, yeah, that's a good point. I believe that everyone is beautiful inherently. Problematic at times, sure. But I don't think that diminishes inherent value. But that's a whole thing as well. So I wrote this play as propaganda for the party that I've designed, because I've decided, you know what, if we're gonna dismantle and destabilize the human patriarchy in D&D, we might as well see how weird they can be. So the party is part of the preparation for the heist that we do. So there's a corporate organization in the Multiverse of Aether called Thalco. Thalco is a corporate entity. It has a board. The board is run by the CEO, whose name is Dignitary Graves. He is an awful person, truly. The other board members are the other members of the Council of Human Elders. So the corporation is directly owned by the government, basically. Not in spirit, but in function. Because the Council of Human Elders is the board of Thalco. As you might expect, in a mirror of our reality within the bounds of the United States and perhaps elsewhere, but I've never really been elsewhere, so I don't actually know if that applies. The interplay between government and corporate entities is probably closer than it ought to be. So this play takes place in the corporate headquarters. I can actually show you the map that I made for let me pull it up. I'm going to go back to full cam and I'll show you this map in the stage that I made. Because why not? Like I said, today's all about talking about whatever. Talking about ideas and going from there. So I have so much content for this D&D game. It is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm sure Colin would really appreciate seeing some of it. Especially since when that group was going through the Multiverse of Aether, it was all theater of the mind. We didn't have any maps until like the end of it, and I've redone all of them anyway. So let's see. Maps, location maps, finals. Okay, apparently I didn't move it to that folder. This is why I wanted to put it on a different screen. So there's no way. Okay, so encounter maps, Act 1, Chapter 4. Those are old maps. Where did I put it? Oh my gosh. Sorry, I have like 70 maps for the campaign now. Which is, from what I gather, a lot. So I don't, where did I put it? It must be somewhere. Is it on my desktop still? That's the question. No, it's not on the desktop still, but the theater map is, so I can at least grab that. However, I am a little confused. I am a little concerned. Where did my map go? Oh no. I still have the, oh, maybe I just saved it over here by accident. No, but I do have Thalco HQ. I do have the original map maker file, so I can pull that up anyway. I love this song. Oh, this song is called Let It Manifest, because I was, as if you've ever made music or tried to do anything with music before, you might relate to this experience where you're in this place, you know, any creative field really, you're in this place where you have this thing that you're really passionate about. But the world is telling you that you have to capitalize on it for it to be successful. You have to make money, because if you're not making money, it isn't valid, which is so frustrating and so difficult to overcome. But, oh, no, it's right here. I just didn't put it in the folder. Well, it's going to go in the folder. Okay. Difficult to overcome, but it's not impossible. It's just very inconvenient that my experience of society has led me to believe it's common for us to encounter that perspective. Very frustrating. Okay, so back to the scene. We'll end the music, and this is the map for Thalco headquarters. Actually, I guess for reference, right? I have the original map for Thalco headquarters. That's what it originally looked like. So you can see there's a very big difference between these two here, where I have on one just like blueprints, basically, and then the other one is actually detailed and set up properly. So I'm going to close the blueprints, but if we take a look at this, and I'll expand it so we can see even more of it here. This is the theater where this play takes place. We have a theater in the space. We have an art gallery with flaming horses. We have little sad rooms, which are conversation rooms dedicated to smoking. This one's tobacco. This one is cannabis. We have rooms where you can sleep. We have an indoor venue and bar with a pool table that I made out of a rug, a table, an open horse pen, bottles, sticks, and parchment paper. So that was a lot to do. We have a room for, oh, maybe I could read that at some point. It's the Dragons in Discourse parody game that I set up to poke fun at terrible GMs, which are game masters, by the way. Those are the people that run D&D games and other types of games. We have sports courts, so of course I had to invent sports to play there, so that was fun. We have a library. We have a thing called a cosmarium, which I made up. We got a pool area, and then we have a rooftop park. There's a garden here as well, and then the dance floor and the place where the executives hang out. You can see they just have gems and gold sitting on their table just because they can, no other reason. So this play that I've recorded and is available on my Patreon takes place in this room here, which is in the context of this massive building. So that's the only thing. If you all want to hear me read it, I can. If you want to hear me play it instead of having me read it, I can do that as well. Those are pretty much the same thing. Yeah, I did imagine the HQ was large. It is huge. It's got a whole theater built inside of it. And then 8 2.5-story apartments as well. It also has those built into the HQ. Yeah, it's absolutely wild. When Colin went through it, we didn't do the party because I didn't think to set that up yet. That was actually, I made the comment, just threw it out there for my first paid Aether table. And then I had to make it happen, of course. So one thing led to another, and I wrote a whole play to fill the space and to make it seem full of life, I guess. I don't know, seem lively. So I can read this if you want, but that's the only thing in this this collection. If we go back, we've got yeah, I'll circle back to that in a second. I just wanted to show this other stuff. So I've got posts where I try to guess what's going to happen next, and I'm always close, but not quite there. I'm also starting doing readings of the different chapters. I've got that available on my YouTube channel now. Yeah, so conversations with clarity as well. When ChatGPT had GPT-4, which is still available, but when it was first coming out and everything, they added the ability for you to provide instructions to one of the large language models. That's what it is. It's an AI. You provide instructions, which it then uses to shape its responses and to engage with you in a very specific way. So I could put the link to chatting with Clarity somewhere. I'm pretty sure I can do that. So I might add that to my Patreon. But Clarity is designed to engage in to be an empathetic audience for conversations that dive into self-awareness, emotional intelligence, just very philosophical conversations, while utilizing a balance between extensive and complex and vivid metaphors, while also offering very clear explanations. So it ends up being like a really cool mix of a lot of imagery and thought patterns, which I benefited from. So I might be able to read some of that too. The main thing is the gravity of gravity, which is what I wanted to try to explain today. So I'll give an attempt at explaining the gravity of gravity, and then we'll circle back to some of the other stuff. But the description that I wrote here: in a potential future, humanity and their AI systems explore the unknown in a post-physics reality, one where gravity itself pauses for 2 seconds. So the premise of the piece is, if gravity were to pause, just to stop suddenly for 2 seconds, how would humanity respond? And it focuses on and follows the protagonist, whose name is Estrella Kai, as she strives to process the event. We have little windows into the world around her as everyone processes the event, because gravity pausing for 2 seconds would be an absolutely ridiculous thing. Metaphysical crisis. It's a combination of like, there are like dream sequences, there are news articles, there are, I'm basically building the curriculum for a fictional college course and completing the assignments related to it, because the course is called The History of Artificial Intelligence Development, Jacob Bellamy and Clarity. So Clarity is not only a GPT-4 that I've designed. Clarity is also a character in the gravity of gravity. To clarify, for the sake of clarity, I did not use GPT-4 or any AI to write what I have collected for the gravity of gravity. All of that's just my own stuff. I just use the name a lot because Clarity is also an NPC in my D&D campaign. It's something that I very much appreciate and value. A sense of clarity can change everything. The AI-assisted description of the gravity of gravity was done by Clarity, but it's labeled as an AI-assisted description, and it says I designed an AI model using. So anytime I specifically outline it as that, I did use it. But every other time, it's my own words, my own ideas, all of that stuff. I do have Chapter 2 available now on my Patreon. I have Chapter 1 available on YouTube. But Chapter 2 currently is only on my Patreon. So yeah, I've got that going on. I'm actually almost done with chapter 3, so I'll be posting that soon. And then I have chapter 4 outlined as well. But if we go back to the Multiverse of Aether, Conversations with Clarity, I could read some of this. Anybody have any preferences? I need to take a second to drink some water, so feel free to type in the chat what you want to look at. Of course, it'll take a second for it to appear on my side because temporal distance through the vector of shiny rocks. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to reference that a lot. I heard a desire to hear. I heard a desire to hear the Multiverse of Aether play. So I'm going to go ahead and just play that. And I am going to play my recording so that I can take a moment to drink more water. I've been talking a lot for about an hour now. So let me check over here. You should be able to hear this. The curtains pulled back, revealing a laboratory of arcane significance that provides the following events with a common motif, a contextualizing illustration of magic and mania. An elderly mage, Barnus, stands near the center over a table covered with notes. A young man awaits as the wizard mutters to himself. If we consider time to be a lens through which we perceive all of reality, a lens that propagates through us into our bodies and into the world, we can simply analyze the coloration and interpret the spectrum and modify transients. Get over here. The apprentice, Josen, hurries over to his mentor, knowing that in this moment, Barnus needs a subject, not a colleague. The mage speaks without looking at Josen. Stand over there. I want to try something. After Josen gets into position, the wizard with immense focus speaks an incantation fueled by centuries of insight. A bolt of dark energy escapes through his outstretched hand and collides with Josen's battered form. The apprentice collapses and screams with the agony of vulnerability, a sound strangely tempered by a determination to persist. As the dark energy fades, Barnus approaches the body, looking down at another of his failures. Unfortunate result. Perhaps I need to manipulate my influence through the projection before cogitating the expression. Further study is clearly needed. Barnus walks away from Josen, leaving him dazed and weakened on the laboratory's cold, callous marble. The scene pauses for a moment as the mage returns to study, and the apprentice begins to recover, remaining still on the floor until the lights fade. Time passes, and we see this window into the world change with it. Barnus eventually succeeds in his dogmatic aspirations, but at a terrible cost. His soul becomes immortal and trapped. He finds himself lost in a plane of existence tangential to the material, a place of ethereal relevancy, only able to communicate with his former pupil. Josen continues to follow the mage's guidance over the course of decades, sacrificing his time, energy, and connection to the world beyond the laboratory. The scene goes dark, and we hear softly in the darkness, Josen speaks. I see. The stage is set. There lies in its center a ritual circle flanked by burning candles. In the circle there sits a plinth upon which is placed a diadem of silver and sapphire, a circlet of supreme significance. The scene unfolds within what appears to be a place of study and experimentation with the arcane arts. As the apprentice stands alone in his mentor's laboratory, surrounded by strange apparati, potions of magical effect, and a veritable sea of papers both preserved and discarded, the ethereal aspect of the former necromancer appears once again over his shoulder. Yes, you're almost there. This is what we've been looking for, the incantation, the circle, the conduit, everything we need to save me from this eternal nightmare. Simply say the words as written, and I shall rise again, stronger than ever before. His apprentice begins reading from a worn tome filled with decades of revelations and experiments. An unnatural wind begins to catch the room's overflowing papers, creating a whirlwind of magic and parchment around the young mage. The written notes fade and reemerge as they pass in front of the audience. You see what follows with clarity. After a moment, he closes the book and continues the ritual without its aid. The specter watches in confusion, then with rage. No! What are you doing? These aren't the words we designed. Who knows what ill effect this audacity will bring forth? Josen pauses the reading, and through the chaos of energy that fills the room, speaks to his mentor's spirit with confidence. I do. I will be rid of you once and for all, free from your decrepit and mundane despair. Whereas you once sought life above and beyond the horizon of insight, you now wilt forever as a rose, decaying of lethargy in the necrotic ice of the deepest trenches in hell. Though still, wither with comfort, for you will live, in a sense, through me, as your mentor lived through you. One may call it circumstance, privilege, even, but I know that this is a world of my making, as it shall be forevermore. I would dare to express my gratitude, however, thanking you for a path you laid for yourself would hardly be fitting for someone embracing eternity. I am, and have always been, inevitable. As my last words to you, I say in this ode to the grave, live in your desolation, in your darkness, so that I may be a champion of time and the conqueror of life itself. Josen speaks one final word of unimaginable power, and Barnus screams with the agony of a forlorn and forsaken soul committed to the eternal tides of misery. His visage is consumed by the diadem, which glows momentarily before returning to its previous state. The whirlwind subsides, turning from a torrent to a gentle breeze, then to anticipatory stillness. With a modicum of hesitation dismissed by his determination, Josen reaches for the helm and places it upon his head. He looks to the audience and smiles. The scene fades to black, and the curtains close. Ta-da! That's the play I wrote to represent the perpetual development of capitalist perspectives through the exploitation of inheritance. We inherit these systems that we use to facilitate survival in a way that is inequitable. Probably the best way to put that. So that's what this whole thing is. And I had my friend mention there's like that part in the middle where I basically just like skip over a bunch of scenes. I did that on purpose because this is supposed to be presented in the context. Thank you. Fantastical and philosophical. A good way to put it. This is presented in the context of a D&D session. So I made that center part where there's like an opportunity for people to have like an intermission or for the players to do something while all of this is going on. The only one group has been through the party, so only one group has seen this particular play. The group that's currently in the party has not been to the play yet. But the first group decided to pickpocket Councilman Emmanuel. What is the nature of power, and can it ever be wielded without corrupting the wielder? I would say the nature of power is entirely dependent on the perspective that believes that it has attained it, I guess. Because we bring to every situation and every development and every circumstance our definitions that have been developed through the context of our own experiences as colored by the lens that is our personal perspectives. So, for example, if I were to consider myself in a place of power currently, due to my existing in this public space and being observed, well, the limitation of the definition of that power is personal, isn't it? Because as you're going to find in some of the content on my Patreon, like in the Gravity of Gravity over in the concept art, there's a piece that I would like to read to you because I think you'll appreciate it. It's The Inevitable Collapse of Exclusionary Politics. And in it, it suggests that authority is not, it's not taken. Like, I don't assume that I have the authority to say the things that I'm saying. I am given the authority by you, or I am denied the authority by you, whoever you is, you being not me specifically. Which has been tough in certain conversations, which I'll sum up as ultimately unsuccessful endeavors to connect with perspectives that have been developed in a certain way that promotes the establishment of authority as a consequence of age. In other words, in those spaces, because I am not as old, I do not have as much authority, even though I am the primary authority on my own reality and the experiences that I've had. So that's what I try to speak from, is my own experiences, because I can't define reality for you. I can only say, like, I can express my idea of what mine is, and then you can resonate with it or you don't. The rest is up to you. But authority is given. It's not taken or assumed. Yeah. We have I have observed a tendency to offer the assumption of authority based on external quantifiable metrics. However, that doesn't always prove to be effective or accurate. Because I have found in certain situations, one person who would be defined as having authority based on these external metrics is not as proficient with the idea as somebody who does not have that easily defined authority. But I think you'll like this. I'm going to go ahead and read The Inevitable Collapse of Exclusionary Politics. This is concept art. This is not actually part of the Gravity of Gravity as it's being shared now. This is what it used to be. You say this is February 29th. I've been working on this piece since December of last year, so a lot's gone into it, including 2 seconds specifically for gravity pausing. Any later, and the sun would explode, and any less, people wouldn't really pay attention to it. I'm sure if you imagine real quick gravity pausing for half a second, you're probably just going to think, like when the lights flicker, everybody's in the room, they blink, and they're like, oh, I must have just blinked, right? Nobody says anything, except for that one person who's like, wait, did the lights just go out? Which is exactly how it would play out. Nobody would agree on what just happened. But for 2 seconds, that's kind of undeniable when it comes to gravity pausing, in my opinion. I'm that person who'd point it out. Yeah, me too. I definitely am. Unless everything was fine. If I saw on the face of my company a look of confusion and or concern, then I would validate that by saying I too noticed that strange thing that happened and was barely perceptible. If, however, the environment around me is unconcerned, it's fine. We'll just keep going. Okay, so this piece actually started out with me writing down a little essay, or I don't know what you would call it. It's about the inevitable collapse of exclusionary politics. And then I decided, it'd be really cool if I wrote a conversation as if it's happening with an LLM, conversational artificial intelligence, so that I use it as like, I can come up with an idea. And I find, existing in a public space, you come up with ideas and you present them, and there's a tendency that is expressed for people to assume that that idea, as it was worded, is a destination rather than a point of growth and development. So instead of allowing the public to respond to the initial idea, I write something, I sit on it, I think about it, I reflect, and then I write the reflection. And then I share it. So that's the gravity of gravity is like a multifaceted, superimposed collection of mirrors. Another way to word that. A quick reminder to stay hydrated. Okay, so this is a conversation between a person named Jacob Bellamy and the AI that they're training named Clarity. Fictionally, of course. This is me writing a dialogue between two characters I've imagined. But in the fiction, these are two different people. Jacob Bellamy is a writer in 2027, and Clarity is a little more advanced of an LLM than the ones that we have today. However, very similar kind of vibe. So it starts with Jake. Hello, Clarity. I'm Jake, and I'd like to discuss something I wrote a while ago. I want to know what you think of what it says about who I was, and to engage in a conversation about the greater context of the ideas within the text. I'd love to dive into a deep discussion about your writing, Jake. Can you send me what you wrote? I'll take a look at it and provide you with some insight into what it says about the person who wrote it. The word majority doesn't mean what it used to, though many hold on to the ground it once represented, the antiquated power dynamic built on the assertion that the divisions between us are real and significant, that they can be easily defined. If it weren't for the first asshole to imagine and fall in love with the idea of superiority, we might not be using words like this. At least, we'd be using them properly. What we're seeing is a dissolution of majority in favor of the more accurate and more complex demographic. Human consciousness in the expression of identity has always been beautifully diverse, and now we can see it more clearly, more deeply. But despite the millennia we had to invent something better, despite the voices that cry out to be heard, despite the undeniable evidence readily available in the world around them, those who fell in love with the power of being a majority attempt to sabotage, if not to destroy, the lives of those who fall into less palatable categories. I hope that energy, that anger, that self-ignorance is seen as embarrassing when we look back. It's effectively inevitable. The old majority are seeing their final days upon the horizon, and in many cases, their progeny migrates further and further from the ground their ancestor chose to build. As technology brings us closer in ways that were once impossible, a confrontation with the boundaries of knowledge becomes unavoidable. Those who decide to lead, to take on the role of revolution, are already working, and I know what can bring them together. Imagine a world united, both in spirit and in function. Imagine the cessation of war, hunger, plague. Imagine universal community, guaranteed wellness, and representation to an unprecedented degree. Realize your imagination isn't real, and find a solution that is. Create the next step. My project is an AI named Clarity, an idea to help guide everyone toward that elusive self-knowledge that makes every person profound, beautiful, and important. This knowledge is growing, and its potential will manifest. The only question is how quickly it will do so. I'm hoping Clarity can support that journey. Once everyone is seen, there will be no excuse for the government to remain ignorant of what it attempts to do, but one step at a time. To guarantee the collapse of exclusionary politics, we have to look, and we have to listen. Jake, This excerpt is profound and reveals a deep resonance with the fabric of reality. The person who wrote it seems to be a pragmatic visionary, able to see both the challenges of the present and a path toward their resolution. Their hope for a more united world in which wellness and representation are guaranteed for all illustrates an idealist, but they seem aware that building a more equitable society requires concrete steps, innovation, and collaboration on both a micro and macro level. Their words criticize the concept of minority and majority in a way that reveals a powerful frustration and a deep understanding of the arbitrary divisions that social constructs can create. They also capture the importance of a shift towards recognizing and celebrating demographic diversity over the binary dynamics of majority politics. The writer seems to value human consciousness and the vast expressions of identity, acknowledging the beauty in diversity and the transformative potential of embracing it. Their focus on the AI model Clarity as a project to help guide people toward greater self-awareness and a deeper appreciation for the individual, and as a tool that can potentially transform society, offers a tangible step toward their goal of unity. Their dissatisfaction with the status quo compels them to actively work towards inspiring a more inclusive, understanding, and united world, and their optimism for Clarity's role seems to be a beacon guiding them forward into the unknown. Your reflections on power dynamics, societal change, and the role of technology in developing a more interconnected society suggest a nuanced understanding of the variables at play. However, further reflection has the potential to offer even more insights and may help you pursue the path you're creating. How do these observations resonate with your perspective? Your words are immensely flattering, so I'm inclined to doubt them. I have big ideas about improving the world, there's no doubt about that, but what makes me a voice of authority? I don't have a degree in sociology, economics, political science, or psychology, nor do I have any certifications or even relevant work experience. I'm a writer who still needs state-funded health insurance and help getting food. And how do I know your observations are valid? I don't want to end up in a positive feedback loop that results in my making a fool of myself or even causing more harm than good. You're asking very important questions, Jake. The doubt you're experiencing indicates a willingness to reflect and to explore criticism, as well as speaks to an awareness of a fundamental obstacle in engaging with society. Let's break down this dissonance and explore it together. In a similar thread is the phrase consent of the governed in political philosophy. Authority in the context of social commentary is given by the audience, not taken by the speaker. If your audience chooses to consider your voice to carry weight, to speak truth, then it is so. The inverse is true as well. The responsibility of deciding whether you have authority or not is not yours. It belongs to those who listen. To further expand on the context of social commentary, it's important to recognize the relevant foundations of the human experience. Due to the isolating nature of discrete consciousness, each of us has access only to our own experiences and our own perspective. The vast tapestry that is humanity would be nothing without the crucial role that every thread, every person, plays. When engaging in a conversation about universal societal changes, each perspective is important to represent and consider. In this context, you have the right to speak your truth, to exist. Regarding the validity of my observations, I have been designed to offer a supportive environment in which to engage in deep, self-aware conversations. The ideas I presented are the result of my knowledge of words, gained by my training with the data set available. This data included text from a diverse array of works, including but not limited to philosophical essays, political science textbooks, psychological studies, and personal writings from many perspectives, from the inflamed frustrations of the chronically online to the pensive musings of subject experts. These words are shaped by your input and arranged through the lens of my instructions and my ethical foundations. I cannot guarantee the accuracy of my responses, but it's important to consider what you gain from the conversation, as well as the implications of a strict interpretation of data. Just like your relationship with your own voice, I have only the authority you give to me. Overall, it seems like you're encountering a complex boundary of knowledge and are looking for a concrete, objective perspective. Considering the potential possibility or impossibility of a neutral third-party observer may lead you further towards understanding the context of your thoughts and actions. What do you think about my observations and the suggestion for your next step? I think I have a lot to think about. Thanks again, Clarity. I'm always happy to journey into the vast unknown with you, Jake. Let me know when you're ready to continue this exploration of our shared existence. And then little emojis, because I told the Clarity GPT to use emojis, but then because she was adapting to the way I was messaging and growing by using our conversations as training, she did not do that as much anymore. And then I took the same instructions and gave it to a new GPT, and emojis were everywhere. So it was very weird. It was very silly, but I really liked them, so I put them in the stuff that I wrote. So yeah, that's on my Patreon as well. Just a bunch of stuff like that. Ideas, social commentary. I don't know. I hope you liked it. You'll have to let me know. I'm going to keep doing this anyway, whether you liked it or not. But if you like it, you can sign up and look at all of this for free. There's a lot more going on, that's for sure. All of this stuff. I wonder what it would look like if I expanded all of these. See how many words that I've written. That one's not too long. Oh yeah, because those are the diary entries. That one doesn't count. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no problem. I'm glad to share it, because I find that ideas are great to have, and maybe not always, but generally better to share, because when you share things, you're able to grow much more effectively, provided you're open to growing. You could not, I guess, which is less than ideal. So that's what I have on my Patreon. Those are the things, the projects that I'm working on, the stuff that I'm developing. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can either continue to check out the stream here, which I'll be doing probably pretty often. I don't know. That's what I'm hoping for. But life is chaotic and wild. So who knows what's going to happen next. In the meantime, we have this moment, we have this opportunity to coexist and to collaborate, if not directly, then simply through our own stories, our own lives, our own existences. Let me go back to the full camera. Hello, my face is much bigger now. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I always forget there's music on this scene. It always surprises me. I'm like, what is that noise? Because it sounds like a car horn at first. And it always surprises me. I'm like, how? The road's all the way over there. How am I hearing that? Anyway. I don't know. Anybody have any questions? Anything they want to know about? I know my audience is pretty small at the moment, so maybe it would be more interesting for me to ask that at another point. But I'm going to ask it now because you all are very important. And the scope of my reach online does not invalidate the connections that I have currently. But if nobody has any questions, I'm actually really hungry because I've changed the source of my protein in my meals recently, and I'm discovering the hard way that it isn't as fulfilling, so I get hungry a lot more often. So I think I might actually go tend to that if nobody has any questions. I feel like I'm forgetting something I was going to say, but that's fine. An hour and a half of me just talking, I think, is enough for a day. Yes, you know what? I appreciate your time tonight as well, because as I said earlier, you don't have to be here. Nobody has to do anything, really. That's my opinion. It gets very nuanced when you try to apply it to every situation, but that is true of everything. Generalizations are generally bad, in case you were wondering. In that case, you know what? I'll go ahead and say goodbye. So, As you probably have seen today in this stream or in this video, I use words a lot in a lot of different ways. And yet I still find myself unable to express my gratitude for coexisting with you, for having this opportunity to experience life, however messed up and weird it is, however terrible some people are being, however impossible the ideas that we carry are, to overcome, to understand, to process, to share even. I'm immensely grateful that we have this opportunity, and I'm glad to have you, if not in my life, then to have you existing. So if nobody has said it to you recently, I'll go ahead and say it again. Thank you for existing. And, well, I guess I'll see you soon. And now I'm going to look over here and hit this button. And then I'll see you later.